The stars were forbidden to humanity. For 103 years, Earth had been caged like a dangerous animal. The cage had no bars, only warnings. Automated stations floated at the edge of the solar system, broadcasting the same message in every human language. Go no further. Your kind is not welcome among civilized worlds. Captain Hana stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching those warning stations grow larger on the view screen. She was 42 years old, with gray streaking through her black hair and scars on her hands from the resource wars. Those wars had taught humanity how to fight over water, minerals, and living space. Now those lessons would be tested against something far greater. Distance to the barrier, 3 million kilometers, said Lieutenant Sung from the weapons station. He was young, barely 25, but his hands were steady on the controls. The stations are powering up their weapons. Let them, Hana said. Her voice was calm. She had made her peace with death years ago. Behind her, Ambassador Rena shifted nervously in her observer seat. The diplomat wore civilian clothes, not a uniform. She had argued against this mission in every government meeting, but in the end, democracy had chosen action over safety. Captain, we should transmit our peaceful intentions first. Give them a chance to— They had a century to give us a chance, Hana interrupted. They chose to lock us away instead. The Indomitable was humanity's masterpiece. 3 kilometers of armor, weapons, and fury. Chief Engineer Day had spent 15 years building the fusion pulse drive in secret, hidden in the asteroid belt where alien sensors couldn't detect it. The ship could accelerate faster than any alien vessel. It could take hits that would vaporize their exploration ships. It was not built for peace. Captain, receiving transmission from the barrier stations, the communications officer reported. They're ordering us to stop or be destroyed. Maintain course, Hana ordered. All power to forward shields. The first shot came from the nearest station. A particle beam, the kind that could slice through a civilian freighter like paper. It struck the Indomitable's shields and scattered into rainbow light. The ship didn't even slow down. Return fire, Hana said quietly. Lieutenant Sung pressed a button. The ship's railgun fired a solid tungsten slug at 3% the speed of light. The barrier station exploded in silence, torn apart by kinetic energy. Debris spun away into the dark. 11 stations remaining, Sung reported. His voice had no emotion in it. He had been trained for this. The other stations opened fire together. Beams of energy and plasma bolts hammered the Indomitable's shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. The hull temperature rose, but Day had built the shields to withstand nuclear weapons. These automated defenses were nothing. All stations eliminated, Sung said 60 seconds later. The path to the stars was open. Ambassador Rena looked sick. We just destroyed Covenant property. They'll see this as an act of war. They'll see it as humans refusing to die quietly, Hana replied. She turned to her crew. Set course for the nearest Covenant colony. Maximum speed. The Indomitable leaped forward, leaving Earth's solar system behind. 3 days later, they received the first alien transmission. It came from a Covenant patrol ship, a vessel designed to monitor trade routes and assist damaged freighters. The alien who appeared on screen looked insect-like, with 4 arms and compound eyes. Its translation device made its voice sound mechanical. Human vessel, you have violated Covenant space. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Hana studied the patrol ship through her sensors. It had no real weapons, just tractor beams and stun devices. Negative, she responded. We're here to help you fight the swarm. The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been surprise. Help? Your species was deemed too violent to join civilized space. You proved this judgment correct by destroying our barrier stations. Your barrier stations tried to kill us first, Hana said. We're not interested in your judgment. We're interested in facts. Fact 1. An extragalactic species is eating your colonies. Fact 2. You're losing. Fact 3. We can help. Your help is not wanted, human. You will surrender or— The transmission cut off. On the sensor screen, new contacts appeared. Hundreds of them moving in formation. They came from the direction of the nearest colony world, Talos. The ships were organic, twisted things that looked like they had been grown instead of built. Captain, Sung said, his voice tight. Those are swarm vessels. They're heading straight for the colony. The patrol ship began broadcasting in panic. This is Patrol 779 to Talos Defense. Swarm fleet detected. We need immediate assistance. Hana looked at the colony world on her sensors. 3 million aliens lived there. The swarm fleet would reach them in 2 hours. The patrol ship had no weapons that could stop them. The colony had only basic shields designed to stop asteroids, not warships. Ambassador Rena leaned forward. "Captain, this is our chance. If we save them—" "I know," Hana said. She opened a channel to the patrol ship. "Patrol 779, this is Captain Hana of Earth's battleship Indomitable. We're engaging the swarm. Get your ship to safety." "What? No, you cannot. Human, you do not understand what you face. The swarm has destroyed entire fleets. Your single ship cannot—" Hana closed the channel. She looked at her crew. They looked back with hard eyes. Every one of them had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not return. Every one of them had trained for war while the rest of humanity hoped for peace. "Battle stations," Hana ordered. "Sung, load all weapons. Day, give me everything the engines can handle. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to show the galaxy what humans do best." The Indomitable turned toward the swarm fleet and accelerated. The distance closed rapidly. 10,000 kilometers, 5,000, 1,000. The swarm ships opened fire first. Biological weapons, acid sprays, and living missiles that writhed through space. They struck the Indomitable's shields and burned away. The human ship kept coming. "Firing railguns," Sung reported. The tungsten slugs tore through the first line of swarm ships. Armor that had evolved over millions of years meant nothing against human physics. The slugs punched clean through, destroying internal organs and critical systems. 10 swarm ships died in the first volley. Launching missiles, Sung continued. Nuclear-tipped warheads streaked from the Indomitable's launch tubes. The swarm tried to intercept them with their living weapons, but the missiles were too fast. They detonated in the heart of the enemy formation. Fireballs expanded in vacuum, and when they faded, 30 more swarm ships were gone. The swarm fleet broke formation. They had expected easy prey, not a predator. They tried to run, but the Indomitable was faster. Hana pursued them through the Talos system, and Sung's weapons found them one by one. Railguns, missiles, laser batteries. Each weapon had been designed by humans who understood death. 47 minutes after the battle began, the last swarm ship exploded. The Indomitable floated alone among the debris, its armor scarred but intact. In the silence that followed, Hana received a transmission from Talos Colony. It was from someone important, a fleet commander named Velra. The alien's voice trembled. "Human ship, you saved us. 3 million lives, thank you." A pause. "But we must also ask, what are you?" "Your ship, your weapons. We have never seen such violence, such efficiency in killing." Hana looked at the screen, at the debris field surrounding her ship. She thought about Earth, locked away because the galaxy feared humanity's nature. She thought about the swarm, eating civilizations while those civilizations tried to fight with tools meant for peace. "We're what you needed," Hana finally said, "whether you wanted us or not." Fleet Commander Velra had never seen a warship before, not a real one. The ships of the Covenant were beautiful things designed for exploration and trade. They had elegant curves, viewing decks, and gardens inside. They were built to carry diplomats and scientists across the stars in comfort. The human ship looked like a knife made of metal. Every surface had a purpose. Every angle was designed to deflect weapons fire. There were no windows except on the bridge, no decorations, no wasted space. It was ugly. It was terrifying. It was effective. Velra stood in the command center of Talos Colony, watching footage of the battle. The recordings had been viewed millions of times already, spreading across the Covenant's communication networks. Everyone wanted to see the humans fight. Everyone wanted to understand how one ship had done what entire fleets could not. "Replay the missile strike," Velra ordered. The hologram showed the human weapons again. The missiles moved faster than Covenant torpedoes. When they exploded, the energy readings spiked beyond measurement. Those were nuclear weapons, atomic fire. The Covenant had banned such weapons 3,000 years ago, declaring them too terrible for civilized warfare. The humans had loaded their ship with hundreds of them. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the High Council," an aide reported. "Counselor Thex wishes to speak with you." Velra's feathers flattened against her body. Thex was a politician, one of the loudest voices demanding the human quarantine remain in place. The counselor appeared on screen, his scaled face tight with anger. "Commander Velra, I have reviewed your reports. You allowed the human warship to operate freely in Covenant space. You thanked them for their violence. This is unacceptable. They saved 3 million lives, Velra replied carefully. The swarm fleet would have. The swarm is a problem we will solve with diplomacy and defensive measures, Thex interrupted. Not by unleashing a species of killers. I am ordering you to detain the human ship. If they resist, you are authorized to use force. Velra looked at the battle footage still playing in the corner of her screen. The Indomitable cutting through swarm ships like they were nothing. Counselor, with respect, I don't have ships that could stop them. Neither do you. Then we will build them, Thex said coldly. The humans must learn that the Covenant's rules apply to everyone. Even self-appointed saviors. The transmission ended. Velra stood in silence thinking about orders and survival. She had spent 30 years in the fleet, carrying supplies to colonies and mapping new star systems. She had never fired a weapon at another living being. Now she was being asked to attack the ship that had saved her command. Her aide approached quietly. Commander, the human captain is requesting permission to dock. She wants to meet with you face to face. Velra made a decision that would change her life. Grant permission. And send word to the High Council that communications are experiencing technical difficulties. We won't be able to receive any messages for at least 12 hours. Captain Hana came aboard Talos Station with only 2 others. Ambassador Rena, the diplomat who looked uncomfortable in the military environment, and Lieutenant Sung, who kept his hand near his sidearm. They walked through corridors filled with aliens who stopped to stare. Some looked grateful. Others looked afraid. Velra met them in a conference room. She was tall for her species, with blue feathers and 4 eyes that could see more colors than humans. She studied Hana with all 4, trying to understand this creature. Captain, I must be honest with you, Velra began. The High Council wants me to arrest you. They believe your presence in Covenant space is more dangerous than helpful. Hana nodded as if she had expected this. Do you believe that? Velra thought about the question. She thought about the swarm ship she had watched arrive through sensors, knowing she was about to die. She thought about the 3 million colonists who were alive because humans refused to follow rules. I believe the Covenant has been at peace for so long that we've forgotten what war requires, Velra said slowly. We design ships to avoid conflict. We train diplomats, not soldiers. When the swarm came, we tried to negotiate. They ate our negotiators. War requires people willing to do terrible things, Hana agreed. That's why your species locked mine away. We're too good at terrible things. Ambassador Rena spoke up. Captain, please. Commander Velra, Earth wants to help. We're not here to conquer or destroy. We just want to prove we deserve a place in the galactic community. By building ships designed only for killing? Velra asked. By being honest about what killing requires? Hana corrected. Your ships can't fight the swarm because they weren't built to fight. Our ships can't do anything else. We spent a century building weapons while you built libraries. Neither of us is wrong. We're just different. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Velra's communicator lit up with urgent messages. Commander, swarm signatures detected. Multiple hive ships entering the system. Velra pulled up the sensor display. Her blood went cold. 20 swarm capital ships, each the size of a small moon. They were heading straight for Talos. Behind them, hundreds of smaller vessels formed a cloud of teeth and hunger. This is impossible, Velra whispered. The swarm has never deployed this many ships at once. It's a full invasion force. Hana was already moving toward the door. How long until they reach the colony? 4 hours. Maybe less. Velra looked at the data again, hoping she had made an error. She hadn't. Commander, we need to evacuate immediately. We can't fight a force that size. You can't, Hana said. I can try. Captain, no. Ambassador Rena grabbed Hana's arm. This is suicide. 1 ship against 20 capital vessels? You'll die for nothing. I'll die buying time for an evacuation, Hana said. How many transport ships does this colony have? Velra's mind raced. 48. But they can only carry 50,000 people total. We'd need days to evacuate everyone. Then I'll give you hours and you'll save who you can. Hana pulled her arm free from Rena's grip. Sung, back to the ship. We launch in 10 minutes. Lieutenant Sung nodded and followed his captain. Ambassador Rena stood frozen, tears in her eyes. She looked at Velra. Please stop her. This is madness. But Velra understood something the diplomat didn't. She had seen the battle recordings. She knew what humans were capable of when they stopped holding back. Ambassador, your captain knows this is suicide. She's doing it anyway. That's not madness. That's what soldiers do. The Indomitable launched from Talos Station and burned toward the incoming swarm fleet. On the bridge, Hana watched the enemy ships grow larger on her screens. 20 massive vessels, each one carrying thousands of swarm warriors. Behind her bridge crew, she could feel their fear and determination mixing together. "Day, how's the reactor?" she asked over the intercom. The engineer's voice came back tired. "We used a lot of power in the last battle, Captain. The reactor needs time to cool. If we push it too hard, push it," Hana ordered. "We either win big or die trying." "Understood, Captain." Sung checked his weapons display. "Captain, I've got firing solutions on all primary targets. But even if every shot hits, we can't destroy them all before they get past us to the colony." "Then we don't destroy them all," Hana said. She pulled up a tactical map. "We hurt them so badly they have to stop and deal with us instead of ignoring us. We make ourselves the biggest threat in the system." "How do we do that?" Sung asked. Hana smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. "We make them angry. Load every nuclear missile we have. Target their command ships. When they see what we can do, they'll forget about the colony and come after us instead." The distance closed. 3 million kilometers. 2 million. 1 million. The swarm fleet continued forward, ignoring the single human ship in their path. They had killed thousands of Covenant vessels. What was one more? "Fire," Hana ordered. The Indomitable unleashed everything it had. Railguns firing at maximum rate. Missiles by the dozens. Laser batteries tracking and burning. The human ship lit up the darkness with violence. The first swarm capital ship died in nuclear fire. The second lost half its mass to railgun impacts. The third tried to turn away and was caught by a spread of missiles that tore it apart from the inside. The swarm fleet stopped advancing. Across 20 massive vessels, the hive mind controlling them felt something it rarely experienced. Surprise. This small ship was dangerous. This small ship had to die before it could kill more. All 20 swarm capital ships turned toward the Indomitable. On Talos Station, Velra watched her sensors and understood what the human captain had done. She made herself bait. She's drawing them away from the colony. Velra opened a channel to all transport ships. "Begin evacuation immediately. We have maybe 3 hours before that human ship is destroyed." Ambassador Rena stood beside her watching the battle. Will she survive? Velra didn't answer. They both knew the truth. The Indomitable ran. 20 swarm capital ships pursued it across the Talos system like wolves chasing wounded prey. Captain Hana watched the distance close on her sensors and calculated how long her ship could survive. Not long enough. "Day, I need more speed," she said over the intercom. "Captain, the reactor is already at 115%. The engineer's voice came back strained. "Any more and we risk a containment failure." "Then we risk it," Hana replied. "Sung status on missiles?" Lieutenant Sung checked his displays. 60% depleted. At current rate of fire, we'll be empty in 40 minutes. 40 minutes. Hana looked at the colony evacuation data streaming from Talos Station. Velra's transport ships were loading civilians as fast as possible, but they had only evacuated 20,000 people. 2,980,000 remained. "We need more time," Hana said to herself. "Captain, the lead swarm ships are entering weapons range," Sung reported. The swarm opened fire. Biological weapons, acid sprays, and living missiles filled the space behind the Indomitable. Hana's ship twisted and dove, evading what it could while the shields absorbed the rest. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Hull temperature rising. Shield strength at 70%. "Return fire all weapons," Hana ordered. The human battleship continued to run, but now it fired backwards. Railguns spat tungsten death. Missiles streaked toward the pursuing ships. Lasers burned through organic armor. The closest swarm ship took damage, its forward sections opening to vacuum. But it didn't stop. The swarm didn't feel pain the way other species did. Damaged ships just kept attacking until they were completely destroyed. "Shield strength at 50%, Sung reported. His voice stayed calm, but Hana could see his hands shaking slightly on the controls. In the engine room, Day watched his instruments with growing horror. The fusion reactor was running hotter than it had ever been designed to handle. Coolant systems were failing. Backup systems were failing. The containment field was starting to fluctuate. "Reactor temperature critical," he said into his communicator. "Captain, we need to shut down now or—" An explosion rocked the ship. Not from enemy fire, but from inside. One of the coolant lines had ruptured. Superheated plasma flooded into a cargo bay. Automatic systems sealed the breach, but 3 crew members had been in that bay. They died instantly. Damage report, Hana demanded. Casualties in Cargo Bay 7, someone reported. Hull breach contained. But Captain, the reactor, keep it running, Hana said. She couldn't spare thoughts for the dead. Not yet. Not while 2 million people still needed time to evacuate. On Talos Station, Fleet Commander Velra coordinated the evacuation with growing desperation. The transport ships were designed for comfort, not speed. Each one could only load 1,000 people per hour. She had 48 ships working simultaneously. The math was brutal and simple. They would save maybe 100,000 people before the swarm arrived. Everyone else would die. Commander, message from the surface, an aide reported. The civilian government is asking why we're not loading officials and important people first. Velra felt a flash of anger. Tell them we're loading families with young children first. Then elderly. Then everyone else by lottery. Anyone who argues gets put at the end of the list. Ambassador Rena stood nearby, watching the battle on the tactical display. The human ship was surrounded by swarm vessels now, fighting from every direction at once. She's still alive, Rena whispered. How is she still alive? Because humans are very good at staying alive when everything wants them dead, Velra said. She had read the reports on human history. The wars, the disasters, the extinctions they had survived. It's a trait your species developed over millions of years. We also developed the ability to know when to run, Rena said bitterly. But Hana never learned that lesson. On the Indomitable, the bridge was filled with smoke and flashing emergency lights. A swarm weapon had penetrated the shields and torn a hole in the outer hull. 3 compartments were exposed to vacuum. Crew members scrambled to seal bulkheads and reroute systems around the damage. Shield strength at 20%, Sung reported. We're out of missiles. Only railguns and lasers remaining. Hana looked at the evacuation numbers. 60,000 people saved. 2,940,000 still waiting. She needed more time, but her ship had nothing left to give. Captain, new contacts entering the system, the sensor operator called out. Reading as Covenant military vessels. 12 ships incoming. Hana pulled up the new contacts on her screen. They were Covenant patrol ships like the one they had encountered earlier. Small vessels with minimal weapons. They wouldn't last 30 seconds against a swarm capital ship. But they were coming anyway. A transmission arrived. It was from the lead Covenant ship. The captain was a young officer who looked terrified. Human vessel Indomitable, this is Patrol Group 13. We've seen the battle recordings. We're here to help. You don't have weapons that can hurt them, Hana said flatly. We know, the Covenant captain replied. But we have shields and engines. We can run interference. Buy you more time, Hana understood. These 12 ships were going to sacrifice themselves. Officers who had trained for peaceful exploration were going to die fighting a war they never wanted. Because the alternative was abandoning millions of civilians. Coordinates received, Hana said. Thank you. The 12 Covenant ships dove into the battle. They had no real weapons, so they used themselves as weapons instead. They rammed swarm vessels at full speed. They positioned themselves between the Indomitable and enemy fire, using their shields to protect the human battleship. They died one by one, buying minutes with their lives. In Medical Bay, Dr. Hyan worked on the wounded crew members. Burns, broken bones, radiation exposure. The casualties were mounting. She had trained for military medicine, but training wasn't the same as reality. Her hands moved automatically, applying treatments while her mind tried not to think about how many more wounded would arrive before this was over. A young ensign died on her table. Hyun closed his eyes and moved to the next patient. There was no time to grieve. The battle continued for 3 hours. The longest 3 hours of Hana's life. The Indomitable fought with everything it had, then kept fighting when it had nothing left. When the railguns overheated, they used lasers. When the lasers failed, they used point defense weapons designed for intercepting missiles. When those ran out of ammunition, they rammed debris into swarm ships using the tractor beams. Engineering reported fires in 3 sections. Medical reported 40% casualties. Weapons reported all systems damaged or destroyed. The ship was dying by degrees, held together by will and desperation. Captain, message from Talos Station, communications reported. The last transport ship has launched. Evacuation is complete. Hana felt something loosen in her chest. How many? 140,000 saved. 140,000 out of 3 million. But without the Indomitable, it would have been 0. She opened a channel to Velra. Commander, the colony is yours. We're going to lead the swarm away from the planet. Don't follow us. Captain Hana, Velra's voice was thick with emotion. Your sacrifice will be remembered. Your crew will be honored. The Covenant will probably still hate us, Hana interrupted. But that's fine. We didn't do this for gratitude. We did it because it needed doing. She closed the channel and looked at her crew. They looked back at her with faces covered in soot and blood. Some were injured. All were exhausted, but none of them looked like they regretted being here. All hands, this is the captain, Hana said over the ship-wide intercom. We've accomplished our mission. The civilians are safe. Now we're going to accomplish one more thing. We're going to show these swarm ships what happens when you chase humans into a corner. Day, give me ramming speed. Captain? Day's voice came back confused. You heard me. Point us at the biggest swarm ship and give me everything the reactor has left. We're going out the human way. Understanding spread across the bridge. Sung smiled grimly and locked targeting on the largest enemy vessel. The crew at their station straightened their backs. If they were going to die, they would die like humans. Fighting. The Indomitable turned toward the swarm flagship. The reactor screamed past every safety limit. The ship accelerated to ramming speed, all weapons firing at the target. The swarm tried to stop the battleship, but momentum and rage carried it forward. At the last second, Day triggered the reactor overload. The explosion was visible from Talos Station. It lit up the system like a new sun being born. When the light faded, the swarm flagship was gone, destroyed completely. The remaining swarm ships broke off their attack and retreated into the dark. They had learned something today. They had learned that humans were dangerous. On Talos Station, Velra watched the sensors showing nothing where the human battleship had been. She stood in silence, along with everyone else in the command center. Even the evacuees crowding into the station's docking bays grew quiet when they heard the news. Ambassador Rena wept openly. She knew, Rena said through her tears. From the beginning, she knew this was suicide. Yes, Velra agreed quietly. But she did it anyway. That's what makes humans terrifying. They know the cost and pay it anyway. Across the Covenant, billions watched the recordings. The Covenant High Council met on Unara, the ancient capital world where 1,000 species had signed treaties of peace over 10,000 years. The chamber was a beautiful thing, designed to inspire cooperation and understanding. Crystal walls caught the light from 3 suns. Gardens grew in floating platforms. The air smelled of flowers from 100 different worlds. Today, the chamber smelled like fear. Counselor Thex stood at the speaker's platform, his scales rippling with agitation. We must act now before it is too late. The humans have proven themselves to be exactly what we feared. Violent, uncontrollable, dangerous to civilized space. Fleet Commander Velra sat in the witness section, still wearing her uniform from Talos Station. She had been summoned to testify about the human battleship. With respect, Counselor, the humans saved 140,000 lives. By destroying a Covenant blockade, ignoring our laws, and using weapons we banned millennia ago, Thex countered. They brought nuclear fire back to the galaxy. They showed other species that violence works. How long before others follow their example? How long before the Covenant collapses into war again? Ambassador Rena stood in the defendant's section. She had been placed under arrest when she returned to Covenant space, charged with aiding human military operations. The swarm doesn't care about your laws, she said. They don't negotiate. They don't make treaties. They just eat. You needed warriors and you got them. We needed protectors, not butchers, another counselor said. This one was from the peaceful Kareen species, the same as Velra. There must be another way. Violence only breeds more violence. Tell that to the 2 million people who died on Talos, Velra said quietly. Tell them there was another way when the swarm was eating them alive. The debate continued for hours. The council was split into 3 factions. Some wanted humanity destroyed before they became a threat. Others wanted alliance. The largest group wanted to continue the blockade and handle the swarm without human help. That group was led by Thex, who saw humans as disease that would infect the galaxy's peace. Outside the council chamber, the galaxy watched and argued. On some worlds, humans were heroes. On others, they were monsters. The recordings from Talos played everywhere. People saw the Indomitable fighting alone against impossible odds. They saw Covenant patrol ships dying alongside humans. They saw the final explosion that lit up the system. Most importantly, they saw that someone had finally hurt the swarm. really hurt them. For 2 years, the swarm had invaded Covenant space without facing real resistance. Now they knew pain. They knew fear. Because of humans. The debate in the council chamber was interrupted by alarms. Security officers rushed to their positions. The ceiling displays showed sensor data from the Orbital Defense Network. Swarm contacts. Someone shouted. 50 capital ships entering the system. Counselor Thex went pale. That's impossible. Unara is the most heavily defended world in the Covenant. They couldn't possibly— They are, Velra said grimly. She pulled up the tactical display. The swarm fleet was headed straight for Unara. They're targeting the council. This is a decapitation strike. Panic spread through the chamber. Counselors from 100 species scrambled for exits. The orbital defenses opened fire, but their weapons had been designed for deterrence, not actual war. Beautiful energy beams that looked impressive but had little real power. The swarm ships ignored them. Evacuation order, Thex commanded. All counselors to the emergency transports. We must preserve the government. Where will we run to? Velra asked. The swarm will chase us. They always do. As if in answer to her question, new contacts appeared on the sensors. 12 ships emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Human ships. Battleships like the Indomitable, but newer. Better armed. They broadcast a single message to Unara. This is Director Mirai of Earth's Defense Fleet. We're here to help. Try not to get in our way. The council chamber fell silent. Then Thex found his voice. Human ships, you are not authorized to enter this system. Leave immediately or face what? Mirai's voice cut across the channel. She appeared on the displays, a woman in her 50s with gray hair and cold eyes. Your defense fleet is about to be destroyed. Your planet is about to be invaded. You have no leverage, counselor. You have no options. You have only one chance at survival, and it's standing between you and the swarm. How did you even get here? Thex demanded. Earth is weeks away. We've been in Covenant space for 3 months, Mirai said. Watching, waiting, building forward bases in empty systems. We knew the swarm would eventually target Unara. We were right. Velra understood the implications immediately. You've been violating our borders for months. Building military installations. That's an act of war. So arrest us, Mirai said. After we save your planet. The 12 human battleships tore into the swarm fleet with the fury Earth had been holding back for a century. These weren't exploration ships playing at war. They were predators doing what predators do best. Railguns fired continuously, turning space into a field of tungsten death. Nuclear missiles streaked by the hundreds. Laser batteries tracked and burned. In the council chamber, billions watched on displays as humanity revealed its true strength. Not one experimental battleship, but 12 production models. Not a desperate last stand, but a coordinated military operation. The humans had formations, tactics, supply chains. They had been preparing for this war while the Covenant tried to negotiate with creatures that only understood hunger. How many more ships do you have? Velra asked, already knowing the answer would terrify her. Classified, Mirai replied. But I can tell you we've been building them for 103 years. We knew eventually someone would need us. Or someone would try to exterminate us. Either way, we wanted to be ready. The Battle of Unara lasted 6 hours. The human fleet fought with mechanical precision, treating the destruction of life as a mathematical problem to solve. They lost 2 battleships in the fighting. 10,000 human crew members died. But the swarm fleet was annihilated completely. When the last enemy ship exploded, the human fleet took up orbit around Unara. Mirai broadcast to the planet below. Counselors, you're safe now. You're welcome. Now let's talk about Earth's admission to the Covenant. Counselor Thex was shaking with rage and fear. This is extortion. This is reality, Mirai corrected. We saved your lives. We saved your government. We saved your civilization. In return, we want what we've always wanted. A seat at the table. Recognition that we belong in the galaxy. You belong in a cage, Thex hissed. You're animals who happen to speak. One of the human battleships adjusted its orbit slightly. The movement was small, but everyone understood the implication. The ship was now in position to bombard the council chamber. Director Mirai, what are you doing? Ambassador Rena asked in horror. Making a point, Mirai said. We could have let the swarm destroy Unara. We could have watched the Covenant collapse into chaos. Then we could have conquered every world in this sector within 6 months. Our projections are very clear on this, but we didn't do that. We saved you. Because humans are capable of violence doesn't mean we prefer it. But you're willing to use it whenever convenient, Thex said. Exactly like every other species in history, Mireille replied. The difference is we're honest about it. We don't pretend our hands are clean while letting others die because fighting offends our sensibilities. Velra stood and walked to the center of the chamber. She looked up at the displays showing the human battleships. Director Mireille, what would you do if the Council refuses your admission? We'd leave, Mireille said simply. Return to Earth, reinforce our borders. Watch while the swarm eats the rest of the galaxy. We've survived alone for a century. We can do it again. And leave billions to die, Velra said. That would be the Council's choice, not ours, Mireille replied. We offered help. If you refuse it for political reasons, those deaths are on your conscience, not mine. The chamber erupted into argument. Some counselors demanded the humans be arrested immediately. Others argued for alliance. A few suggested compromise, perhaps allowing humans limited access to Covenant space without full membership. Velra watched them argue and felt old. She thought about Captain Hana and the Indomitable. She thought about the patrol ships that had sacrificed themselves at Talos. She thought about the simple truth that violence sometimes solved problems that words could not. Counselors, Velra said loudly. The chamber grew quiet. I propose we stop lying to ourselves. The swarm is winning, not because they're stronger than us, but because we're unwilling to do what's necessary to stop them. We've spent 10,000 years building a civilization without war. It's beautiful. It's peaceful. It's dying. What are you suggesting? Thex demanded. Admit the humans, Velra said. Give them full Covenant membership. Let them teach us how to fight. It will change us. We'll become something harder, something less innocent, but we'll survive. And maybe in a few generations, when the swarm is gone, we can teach them how to be peaceful. The vote took 3 hours. It passed by the narrowest margin in Covenant history. Earth was granted full membership, with the condition that human military forces would operate under joint command with Covenant oversight. Counselor Thex cast his vote against admission, then walked out of the chamber. 6 months after the Battle of Unara, the combined fleet gathered at the edge of the galaxy. 200 human battleships formed the core of the attack force, surrounded by 3,000 Covenant support vessels. It was the largest military operation in recorded history. Admiral Hana stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Indomitable II. They had promoted her after finding her alive in an escape pod near Talos. She had been the only survivor from the original Indomitable, rescued by accident when a salvage team searched the debris field. The doctors said she should have died from radiation exposure. She told them humans were hard to kill. Fleet Commander Velra stood beside her, now serving as co-commander of the operation. The Covenant had insisted on joint command to ensure humans didn't get too aggressive. Hana found that funny, considering they were about to invade another galaxy. Sensors show the swarm homeworld ahead, Velra reported. Distance 1 light-year. Mass readings are impossible. The planet is the size of a gas giant, but it's organic, living. The Swarm Queen, Hana said. Intelligence was right. The entire species is controlled by a single organism. Kill it and the swarm dies, or becomes even more dangerous, Velra cautioned. We don't know what happens to a hive mind when it's attacked at the source. Then we're about to find out, Hana said. She opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Hana. We're about to enter enemy territory. The swarm has eaten 100 civilizations, killed trillions. Today we teach them that some prey bites back. For the Covenant. For Earth. For everyone who ever died screaming while the galaxy did nothing. Attack. The fleet jumped forward into swarm space. The journey was instantaneous, translating from normal space to faster than light and back. When they emerged, they found themselves surrounded by enemy vessels. Thousands of swarm ships filled the void. Capital ships the size of moons. Fighter craft like schools of deadly fish. Organic weapons platforms growing out of asteroids. This was the swarm's home territory, and they had been waiting. All ships weapons-free, Hana ordered. Remember the plan. Covenant vessels provide support and defense. Human battleships push forward. We don't stop until we reach the Queen. The battle began with the fury of two species that had no love for each other but shared a common enemy. Human railguns opened fire, throwing tungsten slugs at relativistic speeds. Covenant energy weapons, designed for defense, proved surprisingly effective at close range. The swarm swarmed, living up to their name, trying to overwhelm the attackers with sheer numbers. Chief Engineer Day worked in the engine room of the Indomitable II, managing power distribution across the ship's systems. The new battleship was larger than the original, with better reactors and improved weapons. But it was still human engineering at its core. Practical, brutal, effective. Reactor at 90%, he reported to the bridge. We can sustain combat operations for 12 hours before needing to cool down. We won't be here for 12 hours, Hana replied. Either we win in 6 or we die trying. Lieutenant Sung, promoted to weapons commander, coordinated the battleship's offensive systems. He had learned from the Battle of Talos. Learned how to prioritize targets, how to maximize damage, how to kill efficiently. Firing solutions locked on 16 enemy capital ships. Launching missile spread. Nuclear fire bloomed across the battlefield. Each explosion erased swarm vessels from existence. The energy signatures were picked up by sensors across the galaxy. Civilizations that had never seen atomic weapons watched in horror as humanity deployed them by the hundreds. On the Covenant support vessel Peaceful Sky, Captain Minho commanded a crew of mixed species. He was human, one of the few allowed to serve on Covenant ships as part of the integration program. His crew trusted him because he had proven himself competent. They feared him because they had seen what humans could do when angry. Captain, the human battleship Relentless is reporting heavy damage, his first officer reported. They're requesting support. Minho checked the tactical display. The Relentless was surrounded by swarm fighters, its shields failing. Helm, take us in. Weapons, target those fighters. Let's show them how Covenant ships fight. The Peaceful Sky dove into the swarm of enemy fighters. Its energy weapons lacked the raw destructive power of human railguns, but they could fire continuously without overheating. Minho's crew cut through the fighters like a blade through grass, giving the Relentless time to retreat and repair. Human vessel? This is Minho of Peaceful Sky, he transmitted. You're clear. Get back in the fight. Acknowledged, came the reply. Thanks for the assist. Remind me to buy you a drink when this is over. If we survive, I'll hold you to that, Minho said. The combined fleet pushed deeper into swarm territory, fighting for every kilometer. Human battleships took the brunt of the assault, their heavy armor absorbing damage that would destroy lighter vessels. Covenant ships provided covering fire and rescued crews from damaged human vessels. It wasn't perfect cooperation, but it worked. In the medical bay of the Indomitable II, Dr. Hyun treated casualties as they arrived. Humans with burns and radiation exposure, aliens injured by swarm biological weapons. She had learned to treat a dozen different species over the past 6 months. Today, that knowledge was being tested to its limits. We're running low on burn treatments, a nurse reported. Should we request supplies from the Covenant medical ships? Do it, Hyun ordered, and send them our extra antibiotics. Their species are more vulnerable to swarm infections than we are. The cooperation extended beyond combat. Humans shared their military technology. Covenant species shared their medical knowledge. They were becoming something new. Not quite human, not quite Covenant. Something in between. On the bridge of the Indomitable II, Admiral Hana watched the tactical display as her fleet approached the swarm homeworld. They had lost 40 battleships in the advance. 50,000 human crew members dead. Another 20,000 wounded. The Covenant support vessels had fared worse, losing 800 ships to swarm attacks. But they were winning. Slowly, painfully, but winning. Distance to the Queen, 10,000 kilometers, Velra reported. Sensors show the organism is the size of a small planet. Mass equivalent to a moon. She's defending herself with organic weapons platforms and dedicated guard ships. Hana studied the readings. The Swarm Queen was ancient, enormous, and terrified. She had never faced a real threat before. Every civilization she had attacked had either surrendered or died. None had brought the war to her home. She's trying to escape, Hana realized. Look at the readings. She's building a biological jump drive. She's going to flee to another galaxy. We can't let that happen, Velra said. If she escapes, everything we've sacrificed will be for nothing. Hana opened a channel to Chief Engineer Day. I need you to do something crazy. Why do I not like where this is going? Day replied, I need you to overload the reactor. Controlled overload like at Talos, but bigger, much bigger. Silence on the line. Then Day laughed, a sound without humor. You want to turn this ship into a bomb. I want to turn this ship into the biggest bomb in history, Hana corrected. Can you do it? Yes, Day said. But we'll only have 10 minutes to evacuate. And even then the blast radius will be enormous. Any ships nearby will be caught in the explosion. Then we make sure our ships aren't nearby, Hana said. She switched to fleet-wide communications. All vessels, this is Admiral Hana. Pull back to safe distance. The Indomitable 2 is making a suicide run on the Swarm Queen. We're ending this now. Admiral, no, Velra protested. There must be another way. There isn't time for another way, Hana said. She looked at her second-in-command with calm eyes. Besides, this is what we do. Humans. We make the hard choices so others don't have to. It's our gift to the galaxy. Hana ordered the evacuation. Most of the crew made it to escape pods. Dr. Hyun refused to leave, saying someone needed to stay in case the Admiral was injured. Lieutenant Sung refused to leave his weapons station, saying someone needed to keep firing until the end. Chief Engineer Day stayed in the engine room because the reactor overload required constant adjustment. The Indomitable 2 accelerated toward the Swarm Queen alone. Every weapon fired continuously, clearing a path through the defending swarm ships. Railguns until the barrels melted, missiles until the magazines were empty, lasers until the power systems failed. The Swarm Queen screamed across psychic channels. Every swarm organism in the galaxy heard her terror. She tried to jump away, but her biological drive wasn't ready. She tried to summon her ships to protect her, but they were too far away. She tried everything except the one thing that might have saved her. She never tried negotiating. She never tried surrendering. The swarm had eaten too many civilizations to understand mercy. Impact in 30 seconds, Sung reported from his station. Hana looked at the view screen showing the massive organic structure that was the Swarm Queen. A living world, covered in eyes and teeth and weapons. Beautiful in a terrible way. Day, trigger the overload on my mark. Understood, Admiral. The ship closed the distance. 20 seconds, 10-5. Now, Hana said quietly. Chief Engineer Day released all the safeties on the fusion reactor. The containment field collapsed in a controlled fashion, directing the explosive force forward.